Great. Welcome, everyone. My name is Jessica Holland. I'm the Director of Organization and Community Initiatives, and you are here with us today to join us for Crafting Your Pitch with Malesha, Taylor Browning, and Wes Browning. And so we're really excited to have them here. Before we get started, I wanted just to point out a few things. We are recording the session, so it will be available at a later time, usually within about 24 hours on our website. But give us at least a full day to have it up there, and I'll send a follow-up email telling you that it's ready as well. Another quick note is that we do have the captions enabled, so if you need captions for this session, you can enable those for your convenience. And then the second thing I want to mention real quick is that we're really thankful to the National Endowment for the Arts for making these sessions possible. We do a series of professional development throughout the entire year, usually once a month. Sometimes we skip a month here and there. But we're always interested in hearing from you about what you want to learn about, what's important to you, what are the trends and issues that are coming up in your work that you would like to have more professional growth or professional development experience in. And so please let us know. You're welcome to email me, and I'll drop that in the chat in just a moment. But also, just as importantly, we'll have a survey available for you after this. So just give us some really quick feedback back. I promise it takes less than 4 minutes. And it also gives you the opportunity to tell us what kinds of professional development things you're interested in. We have one more professional development session in June, and that's going to wrap up our fiscal year, and then we'll start afresh and for our fiscal year 25 in July of 2024. So thank you, everyone, for being here. And now I'm going to be quiet and turn it over to the people you're actually here to see. So Malesha, I believe we're starting with you.
Thank you, Jessica. Hello, everyone. We're so glad to have you with us. Good morning. My name is Malesha Taylor Browning, and I'm here joined with Wes Browning, my husband. We are so happy to be presenting today, and we put together this amazing presentation from our lived experience. I am a professional opera singer and an artist. And I'm also a nonprofit founder. Wes here runs Sema Films. He is a filmmaker, founder, and director, producer of Sema Films. And together, we have merged this workshop for you today. A few items for housekeeping. While others are coming in, we just want to make sure that all of your mics are on mute. Feel free to type any questions into the chat window. We will take questions as they come. If they feel really hot and pressing, we will answer them right away. Some questions we may wait until the end to address. And please also feel free to direct message myself or Wes during this presentation. You will all receive a recording of this afterwards. So look out for the recording of this. If you miss any parts or want to share it with others, I believe it will be on the South Arts website on their professional development page. Here are the topics we will cover today. We will talk about knowing your why, the elevator pitch, content. We'll be talking with Wes also about how to work with trusted individuals and how to control your filming environment. So a little bit about me. Classically trained vocal artist. I'm a composer. I've been working in the field of the arts for over 25 years in a combination of roles: arts administration. I've been a teaching artist. I've been a producer. I'm a consultant, and I've also been a professor at a few universities, one of them Clark Atlanta, where I taught for 3 years, others being California State Universities. I've been a guest lecturer at Harvard University, Spelman, and Cal Poly. I am from California originally, transplant. I moved to Atlanta about 5 years ago. And in the 5 years that I've been here, I have done a couple of known local projects, one of them being the Praise House Project, some of you may have seen at Oakland Cemetery or at Emory University. I am the voice inside of that praise house, and it is still moving. Now it's going to Beacon Hill in Decatur. I am also on an album with one of our favorite DJs, local DJs, who is the founder of House in the Park, Salah Ananse. You may also have seen him at several events throughout the city, Hammond House Museum of Art. And I have been an awardee by the National Black Arts Festival. So the Horizon Awards, which come around annually, I was the music awardee in 2022. I'm the founder of Muse Salon Collaborative. We are a nonprofit art service organization. We're recently the curator in residence for Art on the Atlanta Beltline for 21 and 22. And we are currently the curriculum consultant for the South Arts Southern Cultural Treasures program going on right now through 2025.
Hi, everyone. I'm Wes Browning. I am the owner of Sema Films. We are a video production company here in Atlanta. We primarily work with nonprofits across all different sectors in the nonprofit space. We do arts, we do some faith-based work, we do a lot of institutions as well. I've been doing this work for the past 25 years. I've actually been doing some version of this my entire life, since I was probably 8. But really for the last 25 or so years, I've been doing video work. I've been doing I had the pleasure to go to about 45 different countries, travel all over, and a lot of my work is telling stories. And so we do a lot of impact stories. So we talk about how organizations, we talk about individual stories within organizations and how that individual has been changed by that organization's work. And so that's a little bit about me.
All right, so I'm going to start talking about content and how to prepare for this process. From what I understand, South Arts is going to begin to receive applications from artists and arts organizations via video. So that means that you're going to be selling yourself as an applicant on video, on camera, which may be very different from how you are used to. You're used to sending and creating proposals. You may be used to doing, grant applications and everything being on paper. So this is going to be a moment where you're going to pivot from doing everything on paper to doing something on video. And it takes a lot of specialized thought, and your content may come and be different in this type of space, in this medium. So preparation is key. What does that mean? That means that you want to do some extra ground research, okay? Then you may have, just like in any grant application or in any audition or in any opportunity, you want to do background research. That includes looking up who the previous applicants were who won this award or who won this grant. See those who won the grant before you. That includes knowing South Arts, knowing who they are, knowing this actual grant. What does it ask for? How long has this grant been going? Knowing some of the funders, who are the funders and donors who pooled funds together for this grant. You might want to do that kind of research. You also want to build your pitch. So that means you're going to take a little more time to think about what your selling points are. And so that leads us into how to know yourself and how to know the requirements. All right. So you're going to build out your digital branding materials. You know that you're going to likely list your website. If you're listing your website, you want to make sure your website is up to date. You want to make sure that some of the things that are highlighted on this application are underscored and amplified on your branding materials, website, social media handles, your bio. your electronic press kit, whatever presence that you have in the internet, you want to make them all work together in integrity. So if you have a handle that is different on Instagram than you have on your Twitter and Facebook feeds, you want to get that lined up. If you have a different tagline on your LinkedIn than you have in your mission statement, you want to make sure that is in line. So you want to be consistent across all of your web branded materials. You want to know what your brand message is. You want to know yourself. You want to take the time to really dig into who you are and who you say you are to others. You want to get feedback from those that are of witness of your work and your impact. And you want them to tell you, is that what we look like to you? Is this how we appear to others? Is this how we appear to our community that we're serving? You want to know the requirements. Read and reread the application and imagine yourself fulfilling the requirements before you apply. Sometimes you read a grant and you're like, oh, this is perfect. When you go further down, you may notice there are some deliverables that are going to be really difficult for you to deliver on. It may ask you to have a marketing timeline, but you have no marketing team. It may ask you to have a bunch of archival footage or a bunch of B-roll, or you may need to have photos and assets, creative assets as a part of your deliverable, but you don't have a creative team to capture that for you. So you need to start thinking in advance, can I deliver on what this application is requiring? Okay. Also think about whether you want this opportunity. Sometimes we look at the dollar sign first and we don't look at whether we actually want to do the role. And sometimes we get awarded things. For example, I one time was asked, I applied to something as an artist, and they responded to my application and said, would you mind being a curator instead? Okay. So sometimes you need to think about, do I want to go in as an artist on this application? Do I want to go in as the curator producer? Do I feel comfortable doing what this grant or what this opportunity is asking of me? Why is that more important? It's more important because you have to deliver and convince your committee or your audience on camera. Okay. And all of us know that when you're on camera, you have a tendency to be more nervous. You want to maybe have a script. You have to deliver and be convincing on camera. And that's different when you can, do a paper application and throw a bunch of words together. But when you have to talk about yourself, it's like, wow, can I really deliver on camera and really get my point across? Can I really meet up to what I'm saying I am while on camera? Okay. Think about that before you apply.
And I'll interject there. I would say that the answer to that question is, can you deliver on camera? And the answer to that question is yes, you can. Just make sure that you are thinking through all of those different scenarios. I've done this for a long time, and I've worked with people who have zero experience. Most of the time, people who we put on camera for interviews have zero experience in interviews, and they do just fine with enough time and preparation and confidence. Just know that you do have the ability to do it. It just might, in some cases, take a little more work than it might take for somebody else. But that's one of the things we're going to talk about later, is that you do have time to do this. You can do it over and over again until you get it right. That's kind of the beauty of this, doing it this way.
That is true. With video, you can throw away, do over, redo the same way you do with the grant. You can start writing it, throw it out, and say, let me start again. The same thing. All right. More on content. You want to build a script of some kind, just like you build your proposal or your narrative for a grant application. Okay. And you want to use the 5 W's. Many of us have heard of the 5 W's since we were in elementary school. And so we want to revisit that. You want to tell us your who, your what, your when, where, and why. Who is your name, your title, your affiliations, your organization, your entity, possibly. your entity status, your tax status. Are you an LLC? Are you a nonprofit? Are you a 501c3 nonprofit, which is not the same? You want to know your entity classification and name that. Your what? What do you actually do? Sometimes we get really conceptual about what we hope to do. Sometimes we talk too much about what we used to do. Talk about what you are currently doing now. And always pull from a mission or a practice. So some of you may have heard of the mission statement. A mission statement is something that all nonprofits should have. But for artists, you can also craft a personal mission statement or a mission statement for your creative practice. Work on that language. Work on deciding what problem you are working to solve through your work, what impact you are hoping to make through your work. Your when is any history, any background history. Talk about the frequency. Maybe that includes how often you exhibit, what part of the year your practice is on. Some of us are seasonal with our work. Some people have, for example, like a holiday Christmas caroling group. So that means that your season is stronger in the winter, right? So you want to tap into talking about your when. Hours that can include your office hours, your open hours, your studio walk-in hours. Maybe you have folks come to your studio once a month every last Saturday. So share that information. Your aware is not always where you live, right? So you could be in a residency that's out of state. You could have an exhibition going on in the Caribbean right now, but you currently live in Atlanta. You want to talk about your community served. So that means, are you an internationally known artist? Are you at the Biennale in Venice and then you're in New York and London? Or are you local? Do you serve mostly local folks in your town? Talk about that. Talk about your tour schedule. Talk about whether you are on tour. Sometimes people are on tour and we don't have time to upload it onto our website and say, look, I'm actually for the next 3 years in 15 different locations. Put that on your website, make that known. Okay. Why? This is knowing your purpose, your vision, and your passion and delivering that. So if you have a vision is not the same as a mission, right? A mission is about the greater problem you want to solve in the world and how you're going to do it. But your vision may include how you see the future, how you see your impact making a difference, how you see how others will respond to the work of your mission or of your creative practice or of your passion. Another good thing to do is to be clear, relevant, and concise. So some of you may want to have a teleprompter or a prompter in front of you with your script. Others of you are old school. You may like the flashcards or the cue cards. You may want to, I do not advise you using your phone and your video. Some people do that. A lot of people do that, actually. I mean, people give speeches from their phones sometimes. I would not encourage that on this kind of video. I would encourage you to have either something that looks like a paper or a portfolio in front of you, or to have prompting on your screen. Wes, what do you think about that? That's what I think. I know that you did this really cool thing with the Southern Cultural Treasures where you took their scripts and put them onto a prompter and attached it to the camera so that they could be facing the camera and reading off the screen.
Right. Yeah. And so we'll get into a little bit more later about what device you're going to use to record this. But for the most part, when we are recording, we're either using a phone or a video camera, your computer is going to be kind of freed up because we're going to encourage you to not use your computer or a tablet to record this, which means that you could theoretically, if you can get someone to put it beside the recording device. Having just even a Word document up works really well. And there's actually a lot of free teleprompter apps out there too, free teleprompter websites.
Right. And so to this point, when I say script, we're talking about making sure that you've written out something so that you can follow either some talking points, some bullets, or an actual script. And it depends what feels the most natural. You want to look natural on camera. But if you know that you have a tendency to get lost and nervous, you may want to script and memorize. Some people are really good with memorizing. I gave a TEDx talk that many of you may have seen already on YouTube. And I remember freaking out because I wanted to go up there with a tablet. I wanted to read off my tablet because I didn't want to panic in the middle of a TED talk, right? Because the TED talk lives forever. But my speaker coach encouraged me to trust myself, to go over my talking points, and to leave the tablet because they felt like the tablet was a crutch. And they said, just talk freely, just speak from your heart. And that's what I did. And that's why I encourage you to figure out what works best for you. Either way, you want to write something, and give yourself the opportunity to at least pull out all of your major points in your script and either use it as a prompt, use it as flashcards, use it as bulleted, something on your desktop, whatever works for you. But the goal is to be clear, relevant, and concise.
We have one question in the Q&A. I don't know if you want to answer it now, but I'm happy to read it aloud.
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay, and this one is kind of diving right in. Catherine asks, what video editing platforms do you suggest for a beginner?
Yeah, I can answer that. So I would say that for this type of video, we want to keep it super simple. So we don't need anything really super snazzy. But if you end up editing this on your phone, the one that typically comes with your phone, like iMovie for iOS, or Gallery for Android, those apps are going to do just fine for this sort of thing. But if you want to take it another level and do a different type of thing, you could also do Vimeo. They have editing tools within their platform. Canva also has some video editing options. But beyond that, you can go a little more professional if you want. And like our company uses Premiere. Premiere actually has a more beginner version as well that you can use too. So those are some ones I would encourage you to look into.
Yes, and we will get more into that later. I'm going to close up on content here. So this is a quote by one of my favorite speakers, Howard Thurman. And it says, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. So be thinking about being alive and showing what makes you come alive on camera. Show your passion. Show what drives you. Okay. And think about how you want someone to feel by the time they have finished watching your video when you choose your content. There are three aspects of a pitch. One is telling me your why, which we talked a little bit about in the 5 W's. The why is your purpose, who has been impacted, what makes you come alive, what changes you are hoping to achieve in your work. Number 2 is the elevator pitch. The image that comes to mind with an elevator pitch is you go into an elevator and you meet a donor that you've been trying to talk to, or someone that's at a company you've been wanting to work at for years, and you end up in an elevator with them and you're nervous and you've got like 15 seconds to keep them in that elevator longer. Maybe they're getting off on the 3rd floor. What do you say in that first 15 seconds that will keep them in the elevator, they'll actually stay in the elevator even if they have to get off on the 3rd floor? Okay. So think about your call to action in that moment, because you really want that person to want to contact you by the end of your 15 seconds, to stay in touch with you, to look you up, to be interested in you. And so you want to spark interest. You want to deliver something exciting in that first 15 seconds. And you want to lean into number 3, which is your value proposition. Why are you different? What makes you unique? Think about, anybody else who's auditioning or grabbing for this opportunity. Why are you the best person that they should choose? Why are you a good fit? Okay. And you want to speak to your strengths and your track record. If you have metrics or a statistic that you could throw out about yourself, anything numerical, like any kind of data, you want to throw that in your first 15 seconds or 30 seconds. The power of a single story. So this ties into what I call testimony time or testimonials. I don't know if any of you have reviews or testimonies that you have gathered in your time or in your work, but start looking for those. Start looking for single stories of impact that you have made on somebody's life, and start using that as a part of your pitch, because that shows that the work that you do is not just in a silo, that it's not just about you, but it's about those that you impact. And that's what donors and funders are looking to fund. They want to fund people that are making a difference and reaching other people, and not only just doing art for art's sake. There is such thing as art for art's sake, but the art that moves people and changes lives is the kind of art that will stand out. So you want to think about one student you have reached, one parent who has said, "Oh my gosh, when you taught pottery to my kid, it changed his life." You want to have that kind of story ready in the back of your head. If you are an arts organization, you want to start pulling together some testimonials of folks that you have been reaching in the community that have been impacted by your mission and your work. And just to reiterate again, this big quote by Maya Angelou is something that I always keep in the back of my head. People will forget what you have said and what you have done. They may even forget your 5 W's. They may forget the name of your organization. They may forget who you are, but they will not forget how you made them feel. Okay. So always keep that in mind when you are presenting anything about your work, especially on camera. What impression am I leaving? What is my intention coming across? Can they feel me? Are they moved by what I have given? Okay. This is going to make you stand out, because everyone who reads a grant and everyone who watches an audition is a human being. And you, in your human work, want to tap the human part of that human being, which is the heart. Okay. So you want to show that you have a heart-led work. Okay. Just like any performance, just like any exhibition or mini documentary, at the end of the experience of what you deliver and what you have to offer, I want to be moved. Okay. All right. I'm done on content.
So everyone, I want to just kind of affirm all the things that Malesha said here about getting your content together. I'm going to talk a lot about how we're going to make this look good. But if you don't have your content down, then it's not going to work. So make sure you've got your content down. You've got a very clear message, because then you're going to make it go the next level by how it actually looks.
Yes.
All right, I'll go to the next slide. Yep. So the great thing about video is that people are going to retain way more of your message, which is a good opportunity, because after they've read a couple pages of your application, they may not be able to retain as much as they're going to with a video. Studies show that you get up to 95% retention of video versus only 10% of written things. So this gives you a very unique opportunity to shine. So a couple of things to keep in mind. Make sure that you are clearly articulating your value and message, and make sure that you're doing this through quality video. And we're going to talk a little bit in a minute about how to make your video look good. But really, the most important part of this is making sure that you show that you care, that you put some time and energy into how you put together your video. So you keep in mind what you're wearing, that you took the time to turn off certain lights and turn on other lights, that you put away your pets during the recording, things like that. And that you're also communicating just the right amount. It's really important to be concise. It's important to remember that when people are reviewing your application, especially if they're reviewing a video version of it, they've got a lot of other videos to look at. And if your video is 15 minutes long, they may only get 3 minutes into it and say, you know what, this isn't clear. I've got, 100 other applications to look through. And so they may not see all of it. But if they look at yours and they see a 4-minute video or a 3-minute video, then they're going into it ready to really listen to what it is you have to say. And of course, we want to leave them with an invitation. So we want to make sure that that towards the end of your video that you're inviting them to be a part of your work, that you're inviting them to help you create change, that you're inviting them to help you make a better difference in this world. So when you're pulling together your content, so it's really important that you are working with really trusted individuals. So you want people who can be honest with you. You want to make sure that you have people who, when you're pulling together your script, they're going to tell you that this doesn't resonate with them, or it doesn't really capture their attention, or that they can tell you that it's too long. And then of course, the flip side of that, you want to make sure that they are able to tell you for sure that this is really, the type of content that they feel like will help you get the funding or, help you win that application. And so that's on the content side. But then when you're actually recording it, you want to make sure that you have people that you can trust that are going to make you look good. Whether if it is just somebody in your office, that they are taking the time to work with you to get the lighting correct, or if it's a friend, they're making sure that, you're really helping to make you appear the best, that, you don't have something stuck in your teeth, that the clothing you're wearing is not distracting, those kinds of things. So you want to make sure that you're looking for people who are going to be honest with you. You're not just looking for somebody who's just going to make you feel good. But you really want, since you've got to put your best foot forward on this, you want to make sure you've got trusted people in your corner.
And may I add, in case it's not clear on this slide, this is a call for you to include other people. So sometimes we think we can do things alone and we'll be fine, and I don't want to bother anyone, and I don't have a budget to pay someone, and da da da. You need to get somebody. If it's your parent, if it's your neighbor, if it's somebody, a fellow artist, have someone that you trust to give you any feedback. Okay. Sometimes the people who are giving you this opportunity, you can send them. Sometimes they tell you, send us samples if you have a question. Send us your application in advance if you would like feedback. Some places do allow feedback in advance. Finish your video early enough that you can share it with a couple of friends or share it with folks that know something about what you do, and entrust them to tell you, hey, that pink jacket, it didn't work out. It's the color's washed out. We can't really see your face. Get that feedback.
Okay, so before this, you received a handout, and this is just kind of a little cheat sheet that kind of gives you just some really quick, tips on what you need to do. And there's a little more detail on it than what's in this graphic. But these are just some real quick reminders about, being quiet, being in a quiet place, turning your phone sideways, looking straight into the camera, and then of course, giving some time to hit record on both ends of it. And I'll get more into that in a second. Let's go to the next slide. So when we're talking about the types of video recording gear you want to have, I would definitely recommend that if you have access to a good video camera, use a good video camera. Usually most video cameras from the past 5 years are going to work really great. But if all you have access to is your mobile phone, anything from the past 3 or 4 years is going to be a great option. You could even extend that out, probably even 5 years. But you want to make sure that you are using something on the newer end. If you need to borrow one from somebody, borrow it. But try to use whatever the best equipment you have access to within your budget and within your resources, making sure that you're using that. And you want to avoid using the cameras in your laptops and also your tablets. The reason for this is, for the most part, those are generally lower resolution. Now, there are certainly exceptions, but if you have access to a laptop, a phone, and a tablet, I would always recommend going with the phone. Manufacturers are going to always put the highest quality camera in that, because that is, what's really going to showcase the features of that phone. And so usually that's what they're doing. So they're putting the higher quality cameras in a phone. And you want to avoid the camera that's on the front side, on the front facing one, the one that you see on your screen, like when you're taking a selfie. You want to avoid that camera if you can, because the camera that is on the other side is typically better. And I'm kind of making a lot of universal statements here. There are going to be exceptions, but when you have access to those things, I would always recommend going with a mobile phone from the past few years and using the camera that's on the other side. So just to be clear, so here's my phone. So you want to use the one that's on, it's kind of the back side of it. It's the one you normally are going to take photos of when you're taking photos of other people, but try to avoid the one on the front, because the one on the front is just typically not as high quality as the one on the other side. A lot of us are used to sounds in our environment. When we come to work, we're used to hearing the train go by. We're used to hearing the air conditioner. We're used to hearing that fan. If you haven't changed the batteries in your smoke detector, then you're used to that beep. And so, there's all these sounds that are typically, part of your normal environment. Be mindful of that. And when you are about to record, just sit in that place for a few minutes and just think about all the noises you hear, and just realize that you might be used to it, but it might be distracting for the person who's going to watch the video. And that means you put away your pets. It means you put away your kids. It means you put away your partner. So you're putting distractions out of the way. You're putting other noises out of the way. So you want to, and obviously that's going to also help you concentrate a little better too. But that can be distracting in your video if you have those sounds in there. We'll talk a little bit more about how you're going to do framing with your camera. But for the most part, when it comes to your microphone placement, if you're using the microphone that's built into the phone, as long as you're just a few feet away from it, usually the microphone that's built into that is going to be fine. However, you can also, of course, attach a microphone to it as well. And I've got, later I'll talk a little about some suggested equipment. But for the most part, if you're going to use an external microphone, also try to avoid things like headsets. If you are, if most of your video experience, recording experience these days is Zoom calls, you probably are showing up with a headset that's got a microphone out to the side. You want to make sure that the person watching this doesn't feel like they're on a Zoom call. And that is going to be right away, make them feel like they're on a Zoom call. And so just be careful of that you have a good microphone. So Malesha actually brought into the screen an example piece of equipment. And this is actually, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the elements here, but really what she has here is a ring light. A lot of you may already have one. During the pandemic, they were really popular. You could see them at Walmart or Target. Some grocery stores even had them just sitting right up front. And usually most of those are pretty good. A lot of them will also have in the middle a place for you to mount your phone. Um, and that combination right there, you're going to have flattering light. You're going to have your, you're going to have your phone right there. Just make sure you're putting it to where the one that faces you is actually the rear facing camera, not the front facing camera. And this particular one that Malesha actually has, we added a microphone to it as well. And I'll talk more about that in my example pieces of equipment. But yeah. So for lighting sources, of course, right there, we've got the ring light as an option, but you don't have to go out and buy a ring light. You actually, if you're sitting by a window, typically a large window that's maybe got some diffused light coming through it, maybe the blinds are down or you've got some white curtains or something like that, that is going to give you a nice, soft, flattering amount of light hitting your face. If you think about it, a lot of us, if we are talking about our profile pictures, some people are, they'll go into their car and they'll take a selfie of themselves. That there's a good reason for that. And that's because the light coming into your car window is actually pretty flattering because it's diffused. But it's a nice, bright lighting source from the sun. Just make sure that the window isn't behind you, that it's like right in front of you, that it's hitting your face, or at a little bit of an angle, maybe like a 25-degree angle off, from where the camera is going to be seeing you. And make sure that you're choosing a really simple background. You don't want anything that's like super distracting. Of course, if you've got other devices back there like a TV or a computer, you want to make sure those things are turned off. And if you've chosen to have an outfit that maybe has a lot of patterns in it, then you definitely want to have a super simple backdrop, because that can just get visually just sort of confusing. I know we don't always think about it that way, but if you're looking to find a way that is more flattering and more enjoyable to watch, you just want to make it as distraction free as possible. But of course, you want to show up as yourself too. And so do whatever represents you, but just make sure it's not distracting.
Distraction is really important. You do not want to distract anything from the amazing content you are providing and from the amazing person that you are. Okay. So that you have to exercise a little bit of empathy and try, when you're doing these videos, imagine yourself as the viewer, imagine yourself as the panelist or the judge, and imagine watching the video. Take that, put yourself in that role and watch your video and say, wow, was I distracted by this person's lapel for way too long? Because that means I didn't actually hear what they had to say. Okay. So you do want to minimize all distractions as much as you can.
And this is back where the idea of a trusted individual comes in too, because you're going to get, if you've got a friend coming in who's going to be honest with you, make sure they come in with a critical mind, that they think about the viewer and they think about how to make you look the best. So when we talk about camera placement, this is actually a really important one, because a lot of us aren't really used to like thinking about, oh, what angle looks best. I'm confused about where to put it. And if we're used to being on Zoom calls, and we're doing it on our laptop, usually that is not at the most flattering position anyway. And so what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're doing a couple things about camera placement. One, you want to make sure you're in landscape mode, not portrait. So that means that when you're having a phone, you're going to be it's going to be like this, not like this. This is great for TikTok, Instagram, but not for this sort of thing. And there's actually a really interesting reason behind that, why it's actually more pleasing to us, because our eyes are side by side. They're not stacked on top of each other. And so just, we don't really think about it, but just mentally, that is one of the things that kind of keeps people visually engaged, is the fact that it's in landscape. And then when we're placing the camera, we want to make sure that we aren't looking up your nose. And so, we're going to be having straight in front of us, not down at an angle a little bit, and not too high up either. You also don't want to see the top of your forehead. So just think straight out and then just slightly higher at an angle. So maybe even just like straight out, maybe 10 degrees. And then when we're talking about actual camera framing, we want to leave a little bit of space. So for instance, like the way I have my camera right now, this is actually pretty good framing. So you want to make sure you've got a little bit of space at the top, a little bit at the beginning, and you're occupying the middle sort of 50% of the frame. So you're not, you're not sitting over here, you're not sitting down here, and you're not like here where the top of your forehead is cut off. So you just want to make sure that you've got that amount of framing, so it's more pleasing and easier to connect. And one of the really important things to remember here is that you can do as many takes of this as you need to, which means that you can go into this with confidence, that you can relax, and you can smile when you start off. Just remember that you're not going to be perfect, and nothing we ever record for our clients is ever perfect. And so sometimes when they do it a couple of times, it gets better and better. So I would recommend that when you sit down to record this, that you sit down and just say, you know what, I'm gonna do this the whole way through. And even if I mess up along the way, I'm still gonna keep going. And then as you repeatedly do it, it's gonna just get better and better. But when you start the recording, I want you to wait 5 or 10 seconds before you start speaking. So hit record, wait about 5 seconds, have a smile on your face, and then go into your pitch. When you're done, smile at the end, and then cut off, and then, wait another 5-10 seconds and then hit stop. And the reason for this is because what we don't want in the video is we don't want the reaching forward when you've hit stop and start. We don't want that part in there. It's good to have a nice clean start and a nice clean end. And because that's actually super easy to fix, or easy to trim that when you're done with it. If you only record this on your phone and you don't add any graphics or text or anything like that, you can actually record this whole thing through with that tip, the 5 seconds at the beginning, 5 seconds at the end. And then you can actually go into your phone and you can trim that 5 seconds so that you're starting off with just your pitch and you're ending with your pitch. So you're not getting that beginning and end movement. If you do choose to edit, and I mentioned earlier that if you're doing super simple edits and nothing complicated, usually the app that comes with your phone is a good option. The Gallery app in Android, or iMovie, which comes with iOS. Even on your iPhone, even within the Photos app, you can do simple trimming. You don't even have to take it into iMovie. That works really well. But if you want to take it a step up, Vimeo is a good option, and also so is Canva. Both of those platforms have some good, easy to use editing options. But make it super clean and simple fades. This isn't your opportunity to do star wipes. This isn't your opportunity to do a scrolling, Star Wars credit scene at the end or anything like that. So just make sure that it's really clean and simple. You don't put too much in there. Put in just the right amount. And make sure that if you're communicating details visually, whether it's a graphic or text, that it's easy for people to see. So that's one thing you want to make sure that you're checking off your list, that you're not giving text that's really hard to read. It's like really super small. You just want to make sure it's very clear and easy to read. So when you're done recording it, and actually I would recommend doing this before you even start recording it, but just find out what the submission requirements are. Usually in most cases, if you simply create your video and upload it to a platform like YouTube, that's probably going to be fine. But just check and make sure with the submission process, if they have a requirement, like you have to upload the video directly into their platform, or you have to put in a link or something like that. Just make sure you understand before you get started with this, you kind of know what it's going to look like at the end. Um, some people have asked before, like what type of file format. Most of the things coming out of your phone are probably going to record this as an MP4. And that's going to be fine for most platforms. It's a pretty universal right now in the year 2024. If you have the option to enable captions or transcription, or sorry, if you have the option to use like captions or subtitles in the video, try to enable that as well. Even maybe take the time to do it when you're editing it. You can actually put those on screen. But usually platforms like YouTube or Vimeo are going to have some sort of automated option built in. And even sometimes with those automated options, you can go in and sort of make changes to it. But yeah,
Plus,
just make sure that, yeah,
my apologies. I just wanted
yeah,
to
it's
let
fine.
you know,
Yeah,
in thinking about edited videos, we have a quick question from Monica.
yeah.
Monica
Um,
asks,
yeah,
how,
so yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Uh-huh.
okay, I'll read it out loud too.
Yeah, okay.
How important is it that something looks like it's not edited, like jumping frames or something else that might look pieced together?
Yeah, so I would say that, and I guess by jumping frames, you mean like if it's, if I were speaking and then all of a sudden I cut off this right here and it looks like what we would call like a jump cut is what we would call that. Um, there is an option, like what we sometimes do when we do our editing is we will zoom in. Or we'll kind of zoom in. So we'll enlarge it so the jump cuts don't seem as jarring to people, because that sort of just that quick jumpiness can be a little distracting. But I would say for the most part, if you can, I would try to get it all, do it to where you don't have to do much editing at all. I would say it's going to be a more clear and concise message if you're able to get it out. And if you have ums in there, if you have, if you slip and have to, correct a word that you used, that's going to get better over time. The more you record it, you're going to get better at that. Watch the video, see what you want to change, and then just change it. But I would encourage you to have something that doesn't require much editing at all. If you do have to edit it, you can also cover it up with something else, like a photo or a graphic. So for instance, if you are talking about, raising funds for, something you're trying to purchase, maybe you show, an image of that thing, whether it's a new building or a piece of equipment or something like that. But for the most part, I would say try to do it to where you're not having to do much editing at all.
And if I may just add from the funding side of things, that I want to sort of echo what has all been presented here, both with understanding the content and the W's that Malesha went through, but also, to your point, Wes, I mean, I think a lot of funders right now, because this is so new, we really aren't looking for things that are, super edited or have special effects or anything. Like you said, straightforward. We're really more interested in hearing your story.
Yeah,
Yes.
and actually, to that point, I'm actually curious. What do you feel like is the primary reason why people are moving more towards video as part of a submission process? Like what was what was not working, I guess, with just the
Yeah,
only
no, that's a
video
great
version?
question. I mean, I think for us, it's about accessibility. And sometimes writing, some people are strong writers, and I think that has, or some people have strong writing staff. Whereas you have some organizations where you have one person that's doing a multitude of different kinds of jobs or tasks or duties, and writing takes a considerable amount of time. Or they may have their strengths in presenting on camera, and so that was the impetus, is to think about accessibility, how we're reaching different people's strengths, so we're not really just honoring the ones that are where people can write well or have access to someone who's a development director or grant writer, for example. But and the other thing too is, I mean, I really appreciate the statistic you said, you know, from the reviewer side, you know, having engaging content and seeing someone actually speak about their work. You do retain that after reading things for several hours, like grants. You do, you know, you really can't retain it all. It's a lot, and so it's really just a different avenue. It's a different access point. I think some of the challenges we have on our end, which you know, AI, artificial intelligence, is making a lot easier, is transcribing it, because we do want some sort of written copy. And so I think that, you know, now that we have platforms where transcription is so easy to do, I think we'll see a lot more of these kinds of submissions in the future. And we've already played around with it a little bit here at South Arts, particularly for a solo artist, but also for like our interim reports that are not like the main application, but just our check-ins. To some of those, we've gone to video, or at least video as an option. And I think the good news is, you know, I think a lot of funders are probably not going to get rid of the narrative, you know, so it's really about choices.
Yeah, good. That's good to hear. So the last thing I want to say about submitting your video thing is just make sure the link is actually viewable. I know that seems like a really obvious one, but I think it's important that if you've uploaded it to a platform that, you know, for instance, like you can actually, if you upload this to YouTube, you can actually list it as, you can actually have it as an unlisted video. So no one can search for it in YouTube. You can only view it if you have access to that link. So just kind of, you know, test it out, make sure it's exactly how you want it to be presented. Maybe send the link to a friend. Hey, can you open this? You know, or if the platform you're submitting this to has a way to actually view it in the platform before you hit submit, just make sure that that your video is actually viewable, because that's something that's easy to take for granted.
Yes.
So yeah, so I mean, a big part of this is confidence. And I'm going to tell you right now that you know, having going into this believing that you can do it, and knowing that you can do this with several different takes, and that you bring in people who are going to be honest with you. You know, I think that doing this the right way is going to give you a lot of confidence. And once you go through this process, you're going to see that it makes a big difference to prepare in this way, and also in order to set up your you know, your technical things this way as well.
Yes. All right.
All
I
right.
think that's it. Never underestimate the power of knowing your worth and telling your story. There's power in your story. We want to hear it. Everyone wants to hear it. And so finding the confidence to tell it is going to be a thing for you. And whatever that means, whatever you need to do to build your confidence, do that work. Do that before you begin, before you submit and record. All right. More questions?
Yeah, do we want
Yes.
to open this up for more questions? And we can do them in the Q&A section, or if we want to just, I guess, kind of open it up, if people want to start speaking their questions too.
You know, I think a question that I have for the group is, you know, what were your expectations in attending this particular session? So, what kinds of things were you looking for? Is it just sort of exploratory? Were you looking to get specific information? You have these two amazing, talented people here. I'd say let's pick their brains while we have them. So, what do you want to know? What do you want to know about this?
Oh, you're welcome, Anne Marie. She said thank you. I'm going to just throw a recommended gear list into the chat box. I know that's probably kind of a question that a lot of people might have. I don't have any recommendations in here for a video camera because, like I said, I think if you've got a phone from the last couple of years, you're going to be fine using something like that. Or if you've got a video camera from the past few years. But I'm going to put in just some recommended gear lists here in the chat. This is right now on this call, both Malesha and I are using the Shure MV7 microphone. So you can see this here. It's actually become pretty popular with a lot of podcasters. But it's just got it's pretty affordable as microphones go. It's, you can sometimes find them on sale for $250, but I think we got these for around $300. And so I would recommend using one of those. And if you don't have that kind of budget, Rode, the brand Rode, Rode, makes lots of affordable options as well. They actually have a couple of products. One is a video mic that actually attaches directly to the phone. The other one is a smart lav, which is a clip-on sort of lapel mic. And then lighting, in general, like I said, if you can have access to natural light and it's not going to blow out the image, go for that. But if you want to use something artificial, usually some sort of very soft light. And I think this one I've chose here is like one of IKEA's sort of paper lamps. So you've got the paper lamps that kind of have a nice, pleasing, soft look to them. And then a brand name GVM makes a bicolor ring light. They actually make some pretty affordable options. You can find them on Amazon. And then in terms of your phone mount, a lot of you may already have something like this by now, but definitely have your phone on a stable spot. There's nothing worse than watching a video where it's just kind of shaking around. So even if you're having a friend helping you out, make sure they're mounting that to a tripod of some kind or a stable spot.
We have a couple of questions coming up, and it looks like I saw, is it ML?
Yes.
Yeah, so their hand is up, and please take it away.
Okay, this is Emel Dumars. I'm a writer. I have 2 novels and a book of poetry, and I have a company that is designed to help people tell their own stories, write their stories and get them published. And what I was seeking from this was to improve the way I communicate with people, to be more succinct in sharing what I do and what I'm wanting to help them do. So that's what I was hoping to get from this, and I did, and more. So thank you. I think I'll definitely be able to do more social media content based on the information that you provided.
Yes.
Good.
One thing that just popped into my head, thank you for your comment. One thing that I just imagined is some of you, if you're a part of a forum or any kind of group meeting that you attend regularly or have not joined yet, it would be good to be to even an open mic, somewhere where you have a space to talk about your work and to talk about who you are, to get into the practice of putting language to what you do is a good idea. And you could even host a party at your house and have your favorite writer friends come and say, everyone, we're just going, I'm getting ready to do this application. I have to learn how to talk more about my work. And I think others may agree as well. And maybe we should all just get together and talk. And you just get in the room with friends and other co-conspirators and say, let's talk about what we do. Let's talk about our work together. Tell me what you think my work is like. I'll tell you what what I think about your work. And you just get feedback and get a general sense of how comfortable you can be at talking about what you do and how others receive how you talk about what you do. Okay. But thank you for that. I see in the chat, Janice Jones talking about being a senior. And then I see Lisa's question hand up as well. Janice, and for those who are seniors, yes, this is a big deal. Technology can feel really intimidating. Video, computers, all kinds of things for our seniors can feel like a lot. I definitely encourage you to, if you don't already have a little relative, a young person to assist you, do not underestimate an 8-year-old child who will do
Yes.
stuff for you that you cannot believe. Wes and I have 4 kids. Okay. Our kids can edit and make videos right now. Okay. Do not underestimate children, any kid, and kids will get excited to do stuff for you for nothing. They're like, cool, you have a tripod? Great. If you don't have one, they'll go to Target with their parent and go bring it to your house. Okay. So tap into some young folk, any young folk. Um, are there any assumptions you might think of you can share for beginners? Yes. Hopefully a lot of what we said was useful to beginners. If you have more questions, please write us. We have our emails up here. I'm happy to answer any question that you feel like you think you're a beginner and you want to share in private. Reach out to us. We are happy to answer your questions if you feel like you're a novice at something like this. Absolutely.
Oh, and what was your question,
Yes.
Lisa?
So I have a question for you, Wes.
Mhm.
What would you, I guess, suggest is, I guess, the most user-friendly way of capturing B-roll footage? Like if they want to
Mhm.
use it as part of their supplementary materials, in a grant, especially when you're talking about live performance, whether it's dance or theater, and you have people, moving, but you only have a limited space and you don't want to keep turning the camera. Like, what do you suggest is kind of the not professional, but
Sure.
it's not going to, look, like you said, you want to reduce the editing. So how do you really capture that?
Yeah. I would say one of the things that, of course, I would make sure you have the phone turned sideways so it's landscape. And then, you know, everything you're going to capture, if you're not planning on using that particular piece of B-roll in its entirety, 10, 15-second clips is really what you need. And then go get it from a different angle. And so maybe throw it on this is again, I would throw it on a tripod if you can. I mean, I tend to use a lot of supports as well. I mean, I use tripods, we use gimbals, we use lots of other things to kind of help it look stable. But even, a lot of, cell phones do have a pretty good stabilization in them, but I would still recommend, at least beginning, just go grab a tripod, put it on there. Let's say you're capturing, let's say you're a dance company and you want to put together some, you want to pull some clips, go during rehearsal so that you have the option to get up on stage and get a really close shot. Or, you have the opportunity to maybe ask them to pull up the lights a little bit in case, so you have better lighting for the video clip or whatever. But that's one approach I would take. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Also,
Yeah. Good.
I, as an opera singer, I find that I need to be in a large acoustic space to capture the essence of my voice. If you're a dancer, you may want to find a church or a theater or a community center or a school theater where you can put a camera on tripod and have enough space to do the beautiful work that you do, versus being in a small room or in your bedroom, because you're going to get more acoustics out of it. You're going to get more drama delivered in that B-roll. So definitely think about space. There are some amphitheaters, outdoor amphitheaters and parks that you can jump and go run to and find a good time of day. Golden hour is like the
Yes.
hour before sunset. You can, don't underestimate some friends of yours that may have a bigger living room than you that you can go jump in, or an art gallery that's like, ooh, they have a really great floor. I wonder if they'll let me come dance on that floor. Find the environment that helps you deliver your work, your art, at its best, at its optimum, and absolutely use a camera on a tripod when you're doing something like that.
So we have a couple more questions. One in the Q&A from Catherine, who says, organization is a membership organization that has many performing artists that have to submit showcase videos. Do you have any comments for them that we can pass on?
So the way I understand that question would be that it's, showcasing your talent. I would recommend the shorter the better. And so if you're going to, if part of your normal performance might be to perform 15 minutes of something, make sure it's much shorter. So I would say make it a digestible sort of piece of content for them. That would be my recommendation. And of course, the stuff that Malesha just said, do that in a space that is, going to help you perform the best and look the best, whether it's acoustically or visually. I'm not sure if that's a question, if that answers the question, but that would be how I would
Yes.
answer it.
Artists who have archives of performances that they have done, and I've performed in many different spaces. I have different archives. So I may have a recording at a church I sang in that was huge, First Pres in Atlanta, massive, balcony space. I may want to put a small 30-second clip of that. I may want to show another, 10 seconds of me singing outdoors. I may want to show different genres and my capacities to do different genres in my presentation. So I would encourage artists that have different venue spaces and that have archival material to edit really strong snippets of those different spaces to showcase what their capacities are. Because you want to show all your capabilities and capacities in maybe a minute or two. So I would encourage those kinds of artists to look into their archives and find footage, even if it's on YouTube, that they can edit and make a part of their complete long form video, if that makes sense.
Yay, great.
Awesome.
A few more,
Catherine, I'm so glad this has been helpful to you.
a few more questions in the chat, if I may. We
Yes.
have a little bit more time, about 15 more minutes, actually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so Monica says that she was hoping to gain some more information that would help her feel less conscious on camera, which feels ironic because Monica is a performing artist. So I thought I would just throw that comment out there. I
Yeah.
can relate to that as well. Any tips for sort of taking that from stage to camera and showing off your personality?
So I'm gonna chime in there. There's I think there's a couple of realities that are important for you to accept, and that one reality is we're always our own worst self-critic. And so just go in knowing that, and this is a bit of psychology, I guess, but just go in knowing that the criticism you're giving yourself is not real. It's not completely real. Obviously, you need to take care of your appearance and prepare and that sort of thing, but just kind of know that you're going to go into this. If you don't do this a lot, you're not going to love the way you look right away. There's actually a study that's been done before on the sound of our own voice, that a lot of us don't even like the sound of our own voice. And I think and from what I've heard about it, it has more to do with just the way it resonates within your head. It's like it somehow is just disconcerting to us in some way. But just go into it knowing that, like, part of that self-criticism doesn't reflect reality. And that's another opportunity for you to bring in a collaborator who can really help you with your appearance, and then also with your content delivery.
Also, as a fellow performer, imagine that the camera is an audience member in the theater that you're performing in. So you have to go into this not like, oh my gosh, it's a camera. How do I look in this camera? Oh no. And you have to go into the stage. Think about being on stage. Light up the same way that you light up on a stage. And imagine that the camera is a person. And that person is in a house, is in an audience far away from you, not in your face. Because it is more intimidating when you transition between being a stage performer and performing on screen, because the screen is usually right in your face. You feel like they can see everything in your face, that they can see your tears and they can see your saliva. Don't think like that. You have to imagine that they are not that close, that they are out in the audience, that you have a black, what I love about singing on stage is that the audience is dark and I'm lit, right? So you have to imagine that sometimes, just for your psychology. It's okay to imagine things that aren't actually happening. Okay.
Yeah.
But imagine that you are on a stage when you are on camera, and imagine that the camera is a human and not a machine. Okay. That's my little
Yeah.
tip.
Yeah. And there's actually, and this is kind of, I'm trying to remember the name of the editor. There's actually a famous film editor. He would, when he would sit down and do his edits, he would actually create on his desk a little movie screen and like a little rows of people like just watching it. And so he would edit in a way that imagined how his audience was going to see his films. And so, I don't know if you want to go to that extent, but just that imagination, imagining how people are going to see this is kind of important.
Huge.
I see another hand raised by ML.
Yes, I have a question about permission, getting people's permission to film them. I did a docu-film with the NEA grant that allowed me to interview people about their role in a small village in Louisiana, and they were reticent to sign the permission slip that I had written up. But I also wonder, just if you're videoing a crowd, how do you handle that? Is there litigation you have to be worried about? Just tell me how you handle that, basically.
Yeah. So you're asking a question that's both legal and ethical. So there's kind of two parts to it. What you capture, are you being ethically responsible in showing it? Is it the way you're using this, is it okay? And then of course, laws are going to vary by state, but oftentimes a crowd is not a problem. Filming a crowd in public, and again, check your local laws, but typically the expectation is when you show up in public, being filmed as part of a crowd is just kind of a reality you accept by being out in public. It's just like the same thing where, you can't, you can technically film the outside of a hospital from the street, but you can't go onto their grounds and film the hospital without their permission. So it kind of becomes answering both questions. So yeah.
Okay.
And
Thank
then getting rights, getting folks to sign your waiver is something. Sometimes you have to talk to people and tell them. I'm sure you probably did this, Mel. You probably said, "Hey, you're going to be a part of my video. This is what the video is about. This is
Right.
not meant to, I know this may feel like, da da da, but really what my intention behind this video is to show
Yeah.
your story, is to tell the truth about who you are. You're
Mhm.
going to get a copy of it afterwards. You can tell me if you want certain parts edited." Having that kind of conversation. I know, Wes, we when we were in Africa, there were people that were like, "You need to pay me right now if you're going to use my likeness for any reason whatsoever." Sometimes you get people that think that you're using it to make an advertisement. So you have to make sure you have one thing that we did when we were in Africa is we brought someone with us who was a local, who could speak to folk in their language and explain and kind of give credit to who we were. Like, hey, we know this person. This person is cool. You will be fine. Everything is good. You might want to have somebody with you in those spaces to vouch for you and vouch for your credibility, to explain things in a different language. or, to just help folks feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Wes,
And
do you want to speak more to that?
Yeah, I was just going to add one other thing because you mentioned that, you were working on filming something in Louisiana. And I think that the really important part about most film and video releases is that it gives you, the creator, a lot of rights. And that's really important. I think that's really important. If you are creating something and you say to somebody, I want to film you. Is that okay? And they're signing this release. And usually a lot of these releases are going to give you, the creator, a lot of rights for it in perpetuity. It allows you to make money off of it, all these kinds of things. And kind of what Malesha was saying is that you can kind of soften that with a conversation. Now, technically, legally, you can then go do whatever you want to with it if they sign it. But obviously that relationship that you've forged as part of that process is important to you as well. So, you're going to honor it in that way.
It's a great
But
question.
I would say making sure you're getting the release that does give you the ability to do what you need to do with it, and gives you lots of flexibility. Because what you don't want is, you don't want in the moment that, okay, yeah, they feel comfortable with it in the moment, and then you communicated it to them, but maybe they change their mind 5 years down the road. That's where having that signed release is really important. That gave you a lot of rights.
And it sounds like too that that relationship piece, to reiterate, is really important as well, and honoring those agreements, because there are, for us as a service organization, our interest in videos are not going to be the same as other people's interest in videos. And so, some of the things that we can, that might be rights that a filmmaker needs, we don't necessarily need and won't be, making money off of it commercially. So I think you have that flexibility. I have a colleague in the field who's an attorney. He works with a lot of artists, Jim Grace in Boston. And, one of the things that I love that Jim says is negotiate to a contract, not from a contract. So, memorializing that relationship within a contract, and being flexible, but also agreeing with what Wes said. As I'm working with some local communities, or have in the past, around public art, one thing that has come up a lot is video. If you're shooting a video in front of a mural, who owns the rights to that, and those kinds of things. And so some of the cities or smaller communities, or those communities that haven't really figured out a public art policy yet, may not also be thinking about these kinds of things. So these are great questions to ask. And, I don't want to give any kind of legal advice or anything like that, but these are also things that errors and omissions, and other kinds of liability insurance do help with. But I think for the purposes of grant making and submission, it won't get that deep. But definitely, if you're a documentary filmmaker, I know, ML, you've dealt a lot with this, especially someone who's received funding for it. So great question.
Mm-hmm.
And I would add that one of the things that we often encounter in getting people's permission, whether it's just through a legal writing of a signed release or contract or whatever, we do make part of the value exchange part of the conversation. If you let me tell your story will be broadcast for more people to hear. It's also you're telling me, and then you letting me tell your story also helps me create something I'm trying to create. So you're creating this exchange of value, and help them to see that as part of the conversation.
Well, this has been amazing information. I don't want to cut off any more questions, so feel free to ask. But I do want to say that we have a survey for this. I dropped the survey link in the chat, but we'll be following up. And we hope to have Malesha and Wes back for almost like a part two of this work. So this definitely won't be the last time that we bring this up, that we talk about this, especially as we start to incorporate more video submissions into our work. But I'm going to give the last words to Malesha and Wes. And any parting advice for us, any lasting words of wisdom, or comments about the weather?
Yes, I was looking back at Monica's comment again, and I thought about the power of video and the power of technology. Many of you know that there are some things you can cheat a little bit in video that you cannot cheat on paper, like you can make yourself look different. You can put filters that make lighting look cool. You can you can add background music sometimes. You can soften something that you thought was terrible in live performance. You can soften it on a video. So there are some advantages to video when you think about it as a performer. When you perform, that art is raw. It's organic. You get what you see. On video, you can make a high note cleaner by doing some sound editing on the background that a grant person does not know you went and fixed that note or that pitch, right? So do also, all of you, consider that you may not be perfect, but you can actually clean stuff on video much better than if you had to do all of this in person. Okay. So be confident as well in the power of technology and video editing.
Great. Yep. And then, yeah, I would just, I will echo everything that Malesha just said. And, going into this with a lot of confidence is really important. And just know that this it's not final. You can do it over and over and over again until you get it right, and get help.
Well, thank you both, Malesha and Wes, for being here today, taking time to prepare this presentation, prepare the tips. We will be sending out the slides again, in addition to the tips that they put together for us. So we really appreciate all of the advice and conversation that you brought to the space today. Thank you, everybody, for showing up, for spending part of your day with us. We know that your time is valuable, and we really appreciate you in building this community together. So I'm going to leave it with, have a wonderful Thursday, and enjoy your weekend as well.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.